Christopher for Health and Fitness The Truth, and this is the instructional video for how to do the yoga pose, mountain pose. Let's get started. The mountain pose is a very common place from which to start a yoga practice. And as a quick side note, it is called a yoga practice for a reason. The human body can be graceful and strong and beautiful and attractive, and a lot of yoga poses can highlight all of that. But if you only ever do yoga in order to show off, then you're missing the best things about yoga. Furthermore, we don't always look perfect, do we? If you don't allow yourself to make mistakes and look silly, lose your balance once in a while getting into a yoga pose, then it's going to be difficult for you to grow. Yoga represents an opportunity for you to grow both physically and mentally. So go ahead and let yourself make those mistakes. And this is why it's always called a yoga practice. It's not a show of dominance, it's not a show of mastery, it is a practice. So let's look at mountain pose. So as I said, mountain pose is a very common place from which to start a yoga practice. So typically you're at the top of your mat, and in some classes you'll be told to start with your feet together, and in some classes you'll be told to do mountain pose with your feet at hip width apart. And I'm going to tell you that I don't think it matters. What we are going to do is make sure that our feet are both pointed straight forward, okay? Some of us naturally have a bit of a outward external rotation in our hips or our knees and or our ankles, which causes our toes to naturally point outward. And some of us have a little bit of the opposite, right? But in mountain pose, whether your feet are together or hip width apart, we want them pointed straight forward. And do take note of where the weight lands in your feet. If your weight is mostly in your heels, I want you to bring it forward a little bit. And if your weight is mostly in the balls of your feet, I want you to bring it back a little bit. Try to keep your weight evenly distributed throughout your feet and grip the ground with your toes. Okay, now let's move up from our feet to our hips, or more specifically the pelvis. We don't want it rocked top side back, nor do we want it rocked top side forward. We want it neutral. We want it right under the spine. Neutral pelvis is where if you were to place a bowl on the inside of your pelvis, which you could do, there's space there for it, and there's a muscle lining at the bottom of your pelvis called the pelvic floor, and it's essentially a bowl of muscles that rounds out the inside of your pelvis. And if you think of your pelvis as a bowl, if you want a neutral pelvis alignment, you want to think of that bowl not tipping forward and not tipping back to spill anything out of the bowl. You'll likely find that your pelvis tilts either top side forward or top side back, one way or the other, and that is because your spine articulates into your hips in such a way that allows for that forward and backward tilt of the pelvis. And right where the spine articulates with the pelvis, it's called the sacroiliac joint, or just the SI joint. That is right where all the weight of your upper body sits into your hips. And so since the weight of our upper body lands in our hips that way, it tends to push the pelvis one way or the other unless we create the discipline of firing muscles that are necessary in order to put it right where it ought to be in a neutral position. My favorite cues to help bring the pelvis right where it ought to be in a neutral position are to fire your glutes and your core and to pull your shoulders back and down. Now, of course, muscles aren't either just on or off. You can fire them on some spectrum of intensity. And we don't want you to fire the heck out of those muscles just in order to bring your pelvis into neutral alignment. What we want is just like on a scale of 1 to 10, fire those glutes and that core at about a 2 or a 3, that's all. Just enough to bring your pelvis directly under your spine. Now that cue to bring your shoulders back and down is not the same as puffing your chest out or bringing your chest forward, okay? Because we want a neutral, balanced, well-aligned spine. Bringing the chest forward or bringing the chest out extends the spine. And as well as extending the spine, as soon as we start bringing the chest out, we tend to tilt the pelvis topside forward as well in that effort to extend the spine. The bring your chest forward cue is a one very commonly given by health and fitness coaches everywhere, and it is attempted to address the fact that what we're usually doing is bringing our shoulders forward and down and allowing our thoracic spine to flex forward a little bit. We call it a collapsed chest, and so to correct that, often we say chest out or chest forward. But what that does is it causes us to create a lot of unnecessary extension in the spine, okay? An extension in the spine is not a neutral spine. It is extension of the spine. So instead of extending the spine, it would be better to maintain what we had with our pelvis already. A little bit of firing from the glutes and the core to bring our pelvis right where it ought to be. And then, right, your spine could be in a bad position, and what we're going to do from here is just bring the shoulders back and down. I say back and down when all it really needs to be is back, but sometimes I say back and people like hike their shoulders way up and back. So back and down. And this is a much more subtle movement than is chest forward or chest out, but I see the cue being given of chest out, and I watch a lot of spines extended, and that is not proper alignment of the spine. So glutes fired a bit, core fired a bit, and then shoulders back and down. It's a much more subtle movement, but this is a neutral, well-aligned spine. Okay, so we've got our feet pointed directly forward, we've got glutes, core, fired just at a 2 or a 3, shoulders pulled back and down, and finally, we just want to bring our head right on top of our shoulders, which typically means pull the head back a little bit just to bring it right on top of the shoulders. Normally, or typically, the weight of the head pulls it forward and down, as well as the fact that we tend to engage with whatever is in front of us by getting our eyes a little bit closer to it. Whether it's the person we're talking to, or the screen we're looking at and typing on, or the phone we're looking down at, or the road that we're looking at as we drive, we tend to do this all day. So the better posture is just bring that head back. Typically, that's the last bit of advice that we have, going from the ground up in order to make sure that we've got good standing upright alignment. Okay, that's it for mountain pose. Pretty simple, but there's more to standing upright with your arms at your sides than you might have guessed. Notice how, because mountain pose is the simple act of standing upright with good alignment, it translates really well into certainly any other kind of athletic activity, and certainly into just daily life. A well-aligned posture is one of the best things you can do for longevity. And of course, most athletic movements start from standing up. Running, any kind of lifting, any kind of striking, martial art, most ball sports. All of those endeavors are better served if you can begin with good posture. And of course, yoga is no exception. All right, thanks for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. Maybe subscribe, maybe leave me some comments. Share it with some friends if you think they'd enjoy anything that you saw here. And I'll see you in the next video, which in the yoga playlist will be seated meditation, also another common place from which to start your practice. Tell me when you got it.
Yeah.
Got it?
Not your feet, not your... have to tilt up. Good on you, you're getting work. Yeah, now I got your feet in. But
everything's fine except for the blood rush to my head.
yeah. Seriously.
These tight enough so they don't ride up to my freaking pecs when I upside down.